So, what's up people and welcome to the Chapter 103 discussion of Kaiju number 8 or Kaiju8号. So chapter 103 came out a little while ago, and as always I will leave a link to this chapter that's currently being shown on the publisher's official website, Manga Plus, for free to the North American audience. So if you're interested, we'll go take a look at it before they pull this chapter back. Okay, so if you recall in chapter 102, I kind of mentioned that because Kafka was finally going towards monster number 9, and also we heard that Commander Narumi was mentioning that he was also going to go after monster number 9, that we would expect chapter 103 to be finally the battle between monster number 9 and monster number 8. And as much as I was looking forward to this, chapter 103 did not become that. And though initially this would create a disappointment in me, I actually enjoyed chapter 103 a lot, because it revolved around one of the characters that we hardly ever get to know too much, which is Commander Ashiro, Mina, right? And so chapter 103 turns out to be an inner battle that's happening between monster number 9 and Mina, where monster number 9 is trying to break down Mina's will so that basically he can absorb her. And the reason why I like this, aside from the fact that we get more in-depth understanding of Mina, is because we finally get a little bit of an understanding of what is going on in the back, right? Up till now, we understand that there's monsters attacking Japan, and that there's all these different monsters that have been doing many different things, and of course the main monster, monster number 9, has been the mastermind of all of this. But throughout this entire thing, ever since chapter 1, where that little tiny monster went into Kafka and turned him into monster number 8, there has not been any real explanation or even indication of what's going on behind it. Why did that little monster turn Kafka into monster number 8? And what are these monsters anyway, and what are their motives? And in chapter 103, we don't really get much more explanation, but at least we start getting a hint of what might be happening at the very end of this chapter, and so we could go over it at the latter part of this discussion. But in any case, like I mentioned, this chapter is about Mina. And the chapter starts out inside Mina's head, right? And we see little Mina running around inside a dark forest, and she's not sure what's going on. She doesn't remember anything, and the only thing she feels is fear because she is alone and she is inside this dark, scary forest. And she should be afraid because the next thing you know, she is surrounded by a bunch of dead bodies. And the dead bodies turn out, of course, to be the JDF soldiers. But because she is young and she has no memory of what's going on, she does not know exactly what these dead bodies are. She only knows that she's completely terrified because there are all these dead bodies around her. And despite her not knowing what's going on, there is something in the back of her head that tells her that she should know what's going on, that it's trying to remember something, and there is something that she can remember. She just has no way of being able to tap into it to understand what's going on. And it's at that point that we see little Kafka come to help her out. Or at least it looks like little Kafka, but of course it's not, because since this is monster number 9 trying to break down Mina's will, monster number 9 is there as Kafka to guide Mina towards giving up on her battle of wits against monster number 9, right? To basically give in and be absorbed. And so because this is Kafka, she's a little bit relieved, but she is still a little bit worried. Why are these dead bodies all around her? Why can't she remember what's going on? And as much as Kafka is there, he seems to be indifferent to all of these dead bodies. And all he's saying is it's a safer place over there, so why don't you go over there, Mina, and be in a safer, more comfortable place? And to incentivize her a little bit more, we notice that Mina's little tiny kitten, Miyako, is over there as well. So Kafka mentions, why don't you go and be with Miyako, because then you'll be very happy together. And she becomes happier knowing that Kafka is there and helping her out, and knowing that Miyako is nearby, she starts going towards it. But the moment she does so, she seems to be pulled back, held back by something. or someone. And when she turns around, it is a big giant white tiger. And initially, Mina is wondering, is this a bigger version of Miyako? But for some reason, her memory of that finally kicks in and she recognizes who this tiger is and she realizes that it's her partner, Bako, from the JDF. And with that, her memory starts coming together. And when she looks around, she realizes what all these dead bodies are about. These are the dead souls of the fellow soldiers who fought with her and died, protecting her so that she could eventually defeat all of these monsters that she defeated in the past. As much as there was always victory, so many of the soldiers died and sacrificed themselves to gain that victory. And they were all gathered here to show her just how much lives were cost for her to do her actions. And of course, this brings a tremendous amount of guilt. Now, the reason why Byaku appears is not just out of her subconsciousness, but in fact, when we go back out into the real world, we find out that Bako is actually attacking monster number 9. And as powerful as Bako is, it is no match for monster number 9, and monster number 9 immediately starts butchering Bako down. And it's kind of painful to watch. But what you find out is that despite all the injuries that Bako gets, it also does not give in to monster number 9, and monster number 9 cannot absorb its soul either. And so it's fighting for Mina's life, sacrificing its own, and of course Mina realizes that and understands that this is yet another soul that eventually may be lying on top of all these dead bodies just because she could not become strong enough, or at least she felt that way. But of course she understands that if that is the case, the most important thing for her to do is to succeed. And although Kafka, or I should say the image of Kafka, continues to try to bring Mina to a certain location, now enticing her by saying that Bako will be better if she would reach there, she responds back saying that she isn't going to run, she isn't going to forget her pain. It is the pain that continues to drive her forward and to understand who she is. She finally knows who she is. She is Commander Mina Ashiro, the leader of the 3rd Division of the JDF. And with that, she brings out her gun and starts blowing away monster number 9, who is the image of Kafka. And that scene is pretty incredible to see in this particular chapter. And what's interesting is monster number 9 commends Mina for being resilient enough to be able to fight back, but he then mentions that it is a losing battle because so far nobody, not a single soul, has been able to fight against this absorption. Not her father, and what's interesting is then he mentions not even himself. So what we find out is this is not monster number 9 that's actually having the major control of this situation. Monster number 9 is not the main controller of all of these souls. It turns out to be yet another puppet within this group of souls that have been gathered. And in the very final part of this chapter, we see some image of what looks like the main controller of this entire thing. And that's why I appreciate this chapter very much, because we're finally getting an indication that Matsumoto Naoya is starting to finally delve a little bit into the mystery of what the heck is going on behind the scenes with regards to why these monsters are attacking, what is going on with monster number 9, and why did Kafka turn into monster number 8? Now, it doesn't answer any of those. It just gives a little hint that there is something further behind this. And of course, this brings up a question. If monster number 9 is not in full control of himself, then who is in control? And why is he using monster number 9 as the main appearance to do all of its bidding? Why is it hiding behind monster number 9? And of course, who is this monster? And this also creates a question with regards to Kafka. Kafka was also kind of fused with another monster. But in his fusion, it goes a little bit different than what's happening with monster number 9. Instead of becoming a puppet to the monster that fused with him, he is still in control of himself. Or is he being controlled in the background and he does not even know that he is being controlled? This is a little bit hard to understand. But whatever the case, this fusion seems to be a little bit different in that in the very end, he is able to become monster number 8 at will. At least very recently he can. And all of his actions are based upon his desires to want to protect the world and humanity. And so this can mean one of two things, or maybe even more, but at least two possibilities come up. One is that this monster that fused with Kafka is a benevolent one that wants to fight this other monster that's absorbed monster number 9 and is more evil in character, and that's why it needs Kafka to turn into monster number 8. Or the other possibility is that if fused with Kafka, it also has an ulterior motive, but for some reason Kafka has a strong enough will and a strong enough desire to help humanity that so far he has been the dominant persona in this fusion. But if it is the latter, does that mean that eventually the monster within monster number 8 or Kafka will start conflicting against Kafka, and in the future will there be a battle between him and the monster that's inside him to move forward? It'll be interesting to see how Matsumoto Naoya starts building up this world. But the reason why I find that chapter 103 is great is because although it doesn't give any more information to what the world is, it's starting to give an indication that Matsumoto Naoya is at least starting to move in that direction of showing us eventually what that world is. And so I found that to be very interesting, and it may be still frustrating to many of the Kafka fans who want to see the actual Kafka battle, and hopefully that'll come in the future. But I got a feeling maybe chapter 104 will still be within Commander Ashido, because that reveal that we see at the very end of the chapter still may need to be explained, and maybe Matsumoto Naoya will explain a little bit more in the next chapter. If not, it'll switch back to being the outside world and Kafka or Commander Narumi coming in to do the battle. And now we're starting to understand what's going on inside of Mina's head, that she's trying to battle from within with regards to monster number 9. And of course, monster number 8 and Narumi will try to battle from outside. So how will Matsumoto Naoya work the story to portray these two conflicts and to come out with whatever outcome that he wants to get to? This is becoming quite interesting to see what Matsumoto Naoya wants to do with the story, and this may have some tremendous repercussions with regards to the bigger picture that will come out as the story moves on. As much as we have had many chapters, we are still in about chapter 104, which if you compare it to some of the long-running mangas like Naruto, Bleach, or of course One Piece, it doesn't even start to scratch the surface. So maybe this is another catalyst that's showing that we're finally getting into the bigger picture to move on. He needed to actually develop all of these characters in the JDF, and with the training arc, he now feels comfortable that the characters around the JDF can finally move into the story, and he's moving the story forward. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. But in any case, chapter 104 is becoming very curious to see how this story will move on. And once it comes out, I'll bring out another video at that time. But this is the chapter 103 discussion of Kaiju Hachiko or Kaiju number 8. If you read it, what you think about it? Any comments will be greatly appreciated. And until the next episode, happy manga reading. And as always, Jaya, nice day, everyone.